Radio Nigeria, uplifting the people and uniting the nation.
The time is 10 o'clock, and this is the network service of Radio Nigeria. Good morning, listener, and welcome to another engaging edition of Electoral Reform Hour on the network service of Radio Nigeria. Each week, we continue to bring to you insightful conversations on issues that shape our democracy. Last week on the program, we had the pleasure of hosting Louis Alta, the founder and chief executive officer of the Cedar Seed Foundation. Together, we explored the challenges and opportunities in making Nigeria's electoral system more inclusive, especially for marginalized groups like persons with disabilities. Now, it was a conversation that made us reflect on how far we've come and how much more needs to be done to ensure that every Nigerian has an equal opportunity to participate in the democratic process. No one is left out. This week, we shift our attention to strengthening Nigeria's democracy. How can we address the persistent challenges of campaign financing, electoral malpractice, and the lack of strong party ideologies? How can we build an electoral system that truly reflects the will of the people? These pressing issues will be at the heart of today's conversation as we explore what needs to be done to reinforce the foundation of Nigeria's democracy. Stay tuned for what promises to be an enlightening discussion. My name is Fubara Pepple, your anchor. Electoral Reform Hour is a program aimed to foster inclusive dialogue among citizens from varied backgrounds concerning electoral reform and constitutional amendment. It is also to enhance public understanding and awareness regarding electoral reform and then compile and present citizen-derived recommendations to the National Assembly and INEC for consideration. Remember that the program is brought to you by Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PACA, with support from MacArthur Foundation. Now let's give a background to what we're to talk about today. Nigeria's democracy has come a long way since 1999, marked by peaceful transitions of power and improved electoral processes. Reforms such as the bimodal voter accreditation system, what we call BVAS, and electronic results transmission have enhanced electoral transparency and credibility. However, the last elections revealed notable challenges with electronic results transmission, including technical glitches, delays in result uploads, and inconsistencies that raised concerns about the reliability of the process. These mixed outcomes underscore both the resilience of Nigeria's democratic system and the urgent need for continuous improvements. Critical challenges continue to threaten the integrity of Nigeria's democracy. Unregulated campaign funding enables moneyed interest to dominate the political landscape, often at the expense of competent candidates. Weak enforcement of penalties for electoral malpractice emboldens offenders, while vote buying compromises the sanctity of elections. Political parties often lack clear ideologies, reducing elections to contests of personalities rather than policies. These persistent issues raise pressing questions. How can Nigeria build a culture of accountability in its electoral processes, and how can political parties be redefined to prioritize ideas over individuals? Today's conversation ventures boldly into these pressing questions and more, exploring the challenges, confronting uncomfortable truths, and seeking pathways toward a democracy that truly reflects the people's will. Our guest today, Aminu Kasimu Idris, resident Electoral Commissioner INEC in Kaduna State. With over 20 years of experience in election management, Mr. Idris has held several critical roles within INEC, including Director of Election and Party Monitoring. He holds a master's degree in Public and International Affairs from the University of Pittsburgh and is a Chevening Fellow. Before his tenure at INEC, he worked in various sectors, including research, banking, and marketing. His wealth of experience also includes being a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Mediators and Conciliators. Now, after retiring from INEC in 2023, Mr. Idris was appointed as REC in Kaduna State, where he continues to serve with dedication. His deep knowledge of electoral processes and commitment to Nigeria's democratic development makes him a key voice in today's conversation. Aminu Kasimu Idris, you're welcome to our program today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. How is Kaduna State?
Fine.
As hot as Abuja?
Actually cooler than
Abuja. Okay, so let's begin. INEC is, primarily known for conducting elections. From your experience, how does it, and perhaps how has it shaped Nigeria's democracy, particularly in regulating political parties and election-related policies?
Thank you very much. INEC's role in our democracy stems from its constitutional responsibilities. And the Constitution specifically mandates the Commission to not just conduct elections, but register political parties and monitor their activities, which should include congresses, conventions, and even their finances. So where INEC imparts the system is in monitoring these activities and creating a level playing field in terms of reporting compliance or non-compliance by political parties.
Okay. That brings us to the next question. Given the challenges of political party compliance, do you think INEC has enough legal authority to enforce party regulations, or should its powers be expanded?
Well, as it is now, by the existing laws in Nigeria, INEC's role is just to identify the non-compliance. But to punish or to regulate is based on the law. For example, if you look at, there are some requirements in the Electoral Act. If you look at the requirement that political parties must submit their annual reports to INEC, which is Section 86(2) of the Electoral Act, when a party fails to submit, the best INEC can do is go to court, get a conviction, and the punishment in the law is that it's 1 million naira or 6 months in imprisonment or both. So where enforcement is not immediately directly from INEC. So there's this lacuna of having the power to monitor and then being able to control or direct.
Yes. What are some of the things that, because I'm sure some people will be wondering when we say compliance, what are the things that you expect parties to comply with?
For example, in terms of, let's take the activities.
Yes.
For example, if a party wants to conduct a primary, the law requires it that it should give INEC a 21 days notice for the primary. And the notice must be signed by the national chairman and the national secretary. So this is one level of compliance. And then, of course, when the party is conducting, during the conduct must be in compliance with the party's constitution, which INEC has deposited with it. So INEC checks for compliance with the party constitution, of course with Electoral Act and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But that's just an example of one of the activities that you can see where we look for compliance.
Okay. Yes. Now, how effective are INEC's current sanctions against political parties that violate electoral laws, and what stronger enforcement mechanisms should be introduced? Because you said earlier that you can't go beyond a certain limit.
Yeah.
Your law does not allow you to go beyond a certain limit. So if you were to suggest what stronger enforcement mechanisms should be put in place, and how effective are even the sanctions you have against the political parties that violate the electoral laws?
Okay, yeah, as it is now, INEC's strongest power is the power to monitor.
Okay.
And with the power to monitor, it means a report from INEC becomes very relevant. And reports from INEC have all been used to change primary reports and all that at the courts. So the strongest point now is that the presence of INEC creates an incentive to comply. But to make it a little stronger, to me, in my opinion, the sanctions that are in the law now are a bit weak in terms of enforcing compliance. Political parties still told to pay 1 million naira for violation. It's not really an incentive for you to comply, in my opinion. But a stronger way to look at it is, what do political parties want the most? They want to compete in elections. Now, if you tie non-compliance with non-participation, I think that's a stronger
one.
Yeah.
Okay. So instead of job, because if you put maybe monetary, pecuniary penalties, it might just be easy for them to pay.
Exactly.
I mean, if somebody can buy a phone for 100 million, 1 million or 2 million, even if you increase to 5 million, they could still pay. But when you say do not participate at all, then of course that would be stronger.
Yeah.
Now, the frequent defection of politicians undermining party ideology and stability, and it continues to undermine it. Should INEC have a role in regulating political defection, or should this be left to political parties?
Okay. As it is now, I think even political parties do not control defections. Because when a party member defects, he defects, for example, on the floor of the House of Reps, is the Speaker or the Senate President or the State Assembly Speaker that has the authority to declare the seat vacant based on this law.
Yes.
And that is neither here nor here, because if you are defecting to the party of the Speaker, he's not going to declare your seat vacant. So INEC does not have a role in this at all for now. But I think part of what we need to amend is that that INEC issued certificates for elections or winning elections to winners.
Yes.
And in that certificate, it is stated the party you won the elections on. So I think there should be an additional requirement that when you defect, you should write the INEC and notify INEC formally, which becomes documentation that you are defecting for your party. And then the law now kicks in from having a formal documentation from that. But still, the power still rests with the presiding officers, who have the responsibility to declare a seat vacant.
Yes.
It doesn't.
What is the scenario like? Like for you in Kaduna State, give us an experience.
It doesn't become,
because sometimes I discover that it could make your job Herculean.
Yeah.
You've come out with your I mean, after the validity period that you give, you've come out with your list, you've come out with your whatever, and then somebody just tells you the next day that he has moved to another party.
Exactly.
It makes all the work that you have done previously futile, a waste.
Exactly.
So, when you have such scenarios, I know you've talked about the fact that, yes, at the end of the day, you really don't have much legal authority, but from your experience in Kaduna, because these parties, it's part of the thing we said in our introductory remark, they don't follow their ideology, they just do things the way they like.
Exactly.
And when they defect, there's a provision in the Constitution that says you have to lose your seat. But as you said, if you move to the Speaker's party, he will not declare your seat vacant. So how does it affect your job? And apart from the fact that, okay, they should write to you to put in a certificate, what do you think, what other stronger regulations should be there so that INEC's work is not just done in futility?
Yeah, you're right. Because actually, part of INEC's mandate is to keep records.
Yes.
And the records is, after an election, you can now say Party A has this number of members, Party B. So if INEC keeps this record and say a scholar requests for a report, and you give him that record, it may not be accurate again because defection would have happened at the other end. So I think there's need to amend a little and see how we can automatically trigger that vacancy when you defect. Because now the triggering of the vacancy is not automatic. It has the principal officers of the respective houses or Senate have the authority to declare it vacant or not. Because INEC cannot go and conduct election unless there is a formal notification from the principal officer that there is a vacancy. And INEC is the one that is not the organization that declares the vacancy. So you can see how
how we just move back and forth.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now, the Electoral Act and the Constitution require political parties to submit their financial records to INEC. In reality, enforcement has been weak. What challenges does INEC face in ensuring compliance? And then what reforms are needed to improve financial transparency in party funding?
Okay. Actually, as it is now, political parties are required to submit at least 2 major reports to INEC. One of it is the detailed annual statement of assets and liabilities, which is a regular annual report. And then the other one is an election expenses report, which should be submitted to INEC 6 months after an election. So if you finish like the recent governorship election, 6 months after them, the parties are expected to submit an election expenses report to INEC. But as I earlier stated, what's the penalty for non-compliance? The penalty for non-compliance by the law is 1 million naira or 6 months or both. And of course, it's not automatic that you ask a party to pay 1 million naira. You have to go to court, get a court judgment for the party to pay the 1 million. So the incentive for them to comply is rather weak. That's my opinion. And like I said, I cannot think of a better incentive than to say if you do not submit this report, you may not participate in the next election.
Okay, so basically, the same thing we talked about when we talked about not complying with other laws.
Yeah.
Non-participation is key. All right, it's still Electoral Reform Hour, and you can be part of this live program by sharing your comments via the social media platforms on X at Paka_NG. That's at Paka_NG. That's for X, with the hashtag Electoral Reform Hour. And you can leave your questions and comments for us on Facebook via at Paka. And our WhatsApp number is 0816-8083-424. The Facebook is via at Paka. Now, Paka is PAACA. PAACA. So you have make sure you spell it correctly. PAACA. That's at Paka. That's on Facebook. WhatsApp number is 081-6808-3424. 081-6808-3424. The phone lines will be open soon. Please don't go anywhere.
Stay tuned to Electoral Reform Hour on the network service of Radio Nigeria. We'll be back shortly.
Are you ready for change? Join Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PACA, every Thursday from 10 to 11 a.m. on the network service of Radio Nigeria for the Electoral Reform Hour. This program will amplify electoral reform campaigns and provide citizens with opportunity to make meaningful contributions that will strengthen our electoral process.
If you get the presidential election in place and National Assembly in place, and something happens to the governorship and the state assembly, there will be a president in place, there will be National Assembly in place. They can play a key role in making sure that the gap does not affect our constitutional stability. So I think that the way we are going is much, much better, and we should stick to it. It has worked for us and it's working for us, and there's no need to change what is working as of today.
Part of the things we used to grapple with then was the issue of ballot box snatching. You also would grapple with the issue of using police officers to even snatch the ballot boxes, the police officers that go with the politicians to the polling units. Over time, we saw that some of those issues that were identified, there were steps being taken to address them.
The electoral process, if we don't have women engaging or being represented, it means that our electoral process is not democratic, because democracy in itself is about inclusion and is about representation.
Let's embark on this path to significant transformation and well-informed decision-making together. As the National Assembly, INEC, and other stakeholders work toward improving our electoral process, you too can be a part of the decision-making process by participating in the radio program.
You are on to Comrade Abdullah Mohammed, aka Aluta Smith. I'm calling for Bida Local Government Area Council of Niger State. I want to ask if a non-INEC staff is found with EC8, that is INEC original result sealed before the conduct of election, what will be the penalty of such non-INEC officials?
My name is Mr. Zion. I'm calling you from Bayelsa State. When it comes to election in this part of the world, we are not sincere to ourselves. We are so hypocritical and we are so criminally minded. You don't see the sincerity in us. You don't see the patrioticity in us. If Big Brother Niger can conduct election electronically to get their winner, how come Nigeria as a country, we cannot achieve the same results? Let us go back to the normal form, where you come with your paper. The community is here. They can see my face. They can see my picture. You tick me, I go straight to the voting system. Let us learn to save the money we don't have in this country.
Remember, democracy is for the people. Let your voice be heard. This message is brought to you with support from MacArthur Foundation. PACA, making democracy work for the people.
Thanks for staying tuned. We are back with your favorite program, Electoral Reform Hour, on the network service of Radio Nigeria.
Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we touched on some of the key challenges facing Nigeria's democracy. Our guest is Aminu Kashimu Idris. He is a resident electoral commissioner, INEC, in Kaduna State. He's still here with us to share more insights on how we can truly strengthen our electoral system. We need to keep the conversation going. He has said that, unfortunately, INEC can't go beyond certain limits to enforce laws, but then the law should be more stringent, and made a recommendation that, look, some of the provisions as punishment are too cheap. Charging for a fine of 1 million doesn't really hold water. What he thinks should be done is to say, look, if you don't keep to the rules, don't participate at all. Phone lines will be open soon, so stay tuned and get ready to join the discussion. Now, let me continue with you, Mr. Idris. The Electoral Act prescribes penalties for electoral malpractices, but enforcement remains weak. Should Nigeria establish a special tribunal or electoral offences commission for faster prosecution? I'd like us to deal with this one seriously, because we've had various commissions, Uwe's report, some other reports, all recommending, an electoral offences commission. What is your thought about it?
I think an establishment of electoral offences commission is a logical step to take, in the sense that INEC, as it is now, is not an investigating authority. It's not the police, and you cannot prosecute without investigation. And so INEC cannot, although we have a prosecution department in the commission, but somebody has to investigate and bring it. But I'm assuming that when you put this commission together, this offenses, it will have all these aspects of the offences tribunal. Yeah. So it may investigate, it may prosecute, it may arrest. INEC does not have power to arrest. So all
Your
these
powers are really limited.
Yeah. So all these things can be better addressed by an electoral offences tribunal, and I think the recommendation from the West report is very accurate.
What do you think are some of the impediments that, despite the calls for this commission, it hasn't been looked into? What do you think what are some of the barriers? Well, because people have been talking about it over and over. Yeah, but I think we have a caller on the line. Even though I haven't mentioned the numbers, but I think some of our callers are used to the numbers. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, your name and where you're calling from?
I am Alhaji Ibrahim down from Badeji in Kacha local government of Niger State.
Alhaji Ibrahim, go on. Yeah, go on.
Your discussion of today is very important. Money by political position through campaign financing cannot be stopped, no matter the measure taken, because 90% of Nigerian citizens are poor and ignorant. But to minimize money play part in winning political position can be stopped through one constitution, Nigerian constitution, to permit electorate to steal any elected candidate who fails to discharge his responsibility for that. What political parties and that contestants should bring out written manifesto, which will be a defense for us. Secondly, legislative acts of government with collaboration with INEC to stop all political parties to sell nomination funds beyond affordable price for every Nigerian citizen, common citizen. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Ibrahim from Niger State. Thank you very much. He's talking about, campaign finances and ways to stop it. And he says he doesn't think it will stop, but we'll look at it. But what are your thoughts? I think we should take the questions as they come. He's saying that, I don't know whether you heard him properly. Okay, he's saying that it will be difficult to stop monetization of our elections, basically, because it requires a constitutional review, and then we need to give more powers to the electorate to be able to say, if you're not doing well, we can bring you out.
Hello.
And then, of course, your manifesto. They should have an idea of your manifesto, so that if you're
Hello.
not accountable, they can perhaps recall you. Hello, have another call on the line. Hello, your name and where you're calling from.
Hello, my name is Abdullah Mustafa Muhammad Jafi, calling from Bida.
Abdullahi Mustafa, go on.
But it's electoral reform, and I had a very interesting issue before you take my call. That is monetization of election, and because monetization of election, money back politics has come to stay in Nigeria politics because politicians are not ready to stamp it out. So INEC, and there should be a noble law to frustrate and make sure it doesn't have its way any longer in Nigerian political journey. Because right from the political party started off from, like me, I cannot afford a form of even a councillor in Nigeria today. Talk less of member or assembly. Political party are so heartless to the extent they don't want middleman to have say in politics. You cannot buy a form of political party. So that should be discussed right from political party. And then issue of during election, they use billions of naira to rig election, use security, using INEC officials to tempt them to so that so electoral reform. This thing, politicians should not be allowed to effect electoral reform. They can't, because that is their way. So political reform should be within the INA, the Jabba Association of Journalists, and these are the people should be started with the authority to change.
Thank you, Abdullahi Mustafa. Thank you, so that others can lend their voice to the conversation. Meanwhile, the lines are 091 509 10482, 091 509 10482, and 091 509 10483. We have another caller already. Okay, people are really interested in what we're talking about. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello, okay. Maybe there's a network issue there. So, Alhaji Idris, so you can see the two callers are basically talking about the same thing. And I think the second caller has actually emphasized on the fact that, I mean, when you even think of the cost of nomination forms, that something should be done about it, and it should be left in the hands of the political parties. It should be left with INEC. He has talked about the media and other perhaps organizations. We have another caller on the line. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello. Okay, go on with your response, please.
Okay. The two callers are speaking about the general theme of monetization in politics.
Yes.
For example, the reality is that politics cost money all over the world, not just Nigeria. It costs money to campaign, to run, to travel, the logistics, the everything. It costs money to do that. The important thing in tracking campaign finance is reporting, recording, and transparency. There shouldn't be any hidden money being used by politicians. And you think some of our laws address such things. When they say, give us your campaign expenses report, it should indicate to you where there's even the income, where you got the money from, and what you spent it on. This is part of the reason for these reports that.
But do you just rely on the reports? What is your own investigative?
No, we have. That's where I'm going.
Okay.
Because the reports that come from parties also have.
So I can write anything.
That's one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is INEC also tracks expenses, especially visible expenses. But where the reason why the report is important is that INEC can only track. For example, you hold a rally. And they can estimate you rented this place for this, you paid for chairs for this, you paid, and we can get a global figure of what it cost you. But the actual cost should come from you, who bore the expenses. And some of these reports, it is required that an auditor stamps the report. So we're not just taking a report written by anybody, but an auditor who is a qualified auditor also endorses such a report before it's submitted to INEC. Now, it does two things. It gives the public an idea of the cost of election. It also tells you where the money comes from. So part of controlling of expenses is because the expenses in election is inevitable. It's there to stay. You cannot escape that one. The elections.
But another thing I discovered is that, for instance, when you discover that people have gone beyond the limits, and you now liaise, synergize with security agencies, have we had prosecutions that will serve as deterrents? Because if you don't prosecute people who are defaulters, the thing would continue.
That's true.
Yes.
There are limits to election expenses. But there's a gap in the law. The law puts limits on individual candidates. That is a limit for somebody running for president, for governor, for whatever. But those individuals are not required by law to submit reports to INEC. It is the party that is required to submit reports by law. So the party has its own expenses for election, but there's no limit to the party's expenses. The limit to party expenses by law is supposed to be agreed between the party and the commission before you can agree on the limits for party expenses. But the expenses provided in the law is for individual candidates who seek office.
But before the call started coming, I was asking you why you think that, we're talking about special offensive tribunal, and I was asking you why you think that there are barriers that have impeded, the setting up of this commission, because people keep calling for it all the time. What do you think is delaying it?
Well, it's a government decision. It's an establishment they are going to establish. There are some that have had the argument that you just want to create another parastatal and then create another government organization. But it will be looked at from the relevance of that organization. There's a gap that needs to be filled, and it is that tribunal that will fill that gap. So some organizations are really necessary to me, to the way I see it.
09150910482, 09150910483. Leave your questions and comments for us on WhatsApp at 0816-8083-424, 0816-8083-424, and on X, I told you, at Paka_NG, and Facebook is at Paka. Remember, the Paka is PAACA. Now, let's go on with our questions. The House of Representatives recently passed a bill for second reading, co-sponsored by the Speaker, Tajuddin Abbas, proposing an independent body to regulate, register, and fund political parties, removing these functions from INEC. Would this reform solve the issue of weak internal democracy and transparency in party funding, or could it create new risk of political interference?
I think the general idea for this party registration organization is to unbundle INEC and let INEC focus on the conduct of election. So the same point about election offenses tribunal applies here. If you have a party registration and monitoring organization, you have removed that additional burden from INEC. Now there's a special focus on party activity by a specifically mandated organization. So you may have deeper monitoring in terms of enforcement. Of course, the laws governing that will enhance the capacity of the organization to enforce, and it will also allow political parties to be more functional in terms of alliances and all that. If you look
some people will say, if you are, it's part of your mandate already. Registration, you've talked about monitoring and all that. You tracking. So why not, if you say you want to unbundle INEC, why not make that arm of INEC become independent? I don't know whether you'll get my point of argument. Make that arm of INEC. You already have people that are experienced working there. Make it independent, fund it. Perhaps if you don't want the chairman of INEC to be part of it, get a new head who could also be perhaps even a retired INEC person. But let the people working there, people who have already experienced in INEC. Why set up a entire new body? I mean, some people will be saying that.
That's true.
A new body. What assurance are you giving me that the people who would work there will be transparent and won't be devoid of manipulation? I don't know. Do you understand?
I get your point.
So,
but a good example in Africa, for example, is.
Do we have a caller? I think we have a caller. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Abubakar Musa.
Yes, this is Abubakar Musa.
From Bida, how are you?
I'm fine, sir.
Good morning. Go on.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Mr. Aminu, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm very happy that HINEC has experienced staff as you. I believe this will go a long way in increasing our efficiency in our electoral process.
Thank you very much.
But it's very unfortunate that our politicians are very desperate and they are compromising elections in Nigeria. I hope something should be done to ensure that most of our politicians who are not well behaved are sanctioned. That sanction that will lead to maybe a ban on them for some years. I want to talk about the electoral advertising campaign. Our election today, I don't think most of the elections advertising are not issue based, and also our election campaigns are not issue based. I hope that HINEC will caution our political parties to ensure that they come up with issue based campaigns. For example, now, before 2023 election, they talked about ensuring that subsidy is removed. Now we have subsidies removed, but issues of proper policy implementation. I hope next election we focus on proper policy implementation on party-based issues, so that parties should come and express their position on how they are going to implement policies, so that Nigerians should not suffer.
Okay.
And then our electoral process is voter apathy. Voters are losing confidence in our election processes. I hope we will do something about it, so that our election process is efficient and Nigerians embrace the electoral process in the country. Thank
you so much, Abubakar Musa. Let me allow you land with your answer. Except if we have another caller. If not, let me allow you land with your answer. And I was asking you about why setting up another body to regulate when INEC already has that function. What is the guarantee that the new body you're setting up would be devoid of manipulations and inducements?
Okay, in terms of let me commend Abubakar for a good point. He has raised some very good points there. In terms of setting up, we're talking about the functions. We're looking at what functions are you giving this organization.
Which are functions you already do?
We do. With additional responsibilities.
Okay.
So your point of using a department that was already handling to expand, because it's not just going to be party registration and monitoring, to also expand to include activities that parties will be more detailed in terms of submission of reports and all that, and monitoring by the new organization. Now, even if you remove that department, it's still going to be a new organization you're setting up. The cost may be less, but it will be a new organization. But as I wanted to say before the call, a country that uses that system is Kenya. They have a registrar of political parties. The registrar of political parties handles all political party monitoring, registration, and then creates the list of candidates which they submit to the commission for the conduct of election. So,
how successful has it been? Has it led to more credible elections in Kenya? Are there lessons to learn?
I think in that area, what I've noticed is that, towards election, a lot of parties try to say we are now withdrawing, we are supporting another party and all that. In the Kenyan system, a coalition is another aspect of you can contest election in. Even if two parties come together, they can now get a new name, but they are still registered parties individually, but they can run on a coalition. Which the coalition, yes, where the register of parties can present the coalition name as part of the conduct of the election. So some of this flexibility is what will benefit from
the
new system.
Okay, let's hope that if it works, it will run.
Then
let's answer Abubakar Musa's.
Abubakar raised two issues.
Yes.
First of all, part of what he was talking about is the need for party ideology. And political parties, sometimes some people find it difficult to differentiate them because politicians move from one party to another. And it makes no sense. Where you could differentiate political parties is, of course, in the ideology. And there's a requirement of law to submit manifestos. I think there should be more focus by political parties on creating manifestos that are ideologically based. Because if you read the manifestos as it is now, it's almost similar also. If you pick up the manifestos of most of the parties, it's more or less similar. We are promising infrastructure, so it's
they're all saying the same thing, basically.
Exactly. So it still makes it difficult for the electorate to differentiate based on ideology. And when, like Abubakar said, when you want to put, you are supposed to give us policy alternatives. If Party A has a policy on subsidy, for example, Party B should have another policy on subsidy, so that you are now going to make a choice. And you know the details of.
But I think Abubakar also stressed that, I don't know, where does INEC, what it says, INEC should ensure that these parties give us issue-based. That's what you're saying. What are the differences in policy implementation that would differentiate Party A and B? So Abura is saying INEC should help in doing that. Can you play that role in a short issue-based campaign? I know you do training for parties.
Yes, we do.
Yes,
we do collaborative training with parties, even their officers. For example, their treasurers and finance secretaries. INEC has trained them before, so that you keep records, because you can't measure what you don't keep records of. And then in terms of manifesto, it is actually the party's responsibility. And next role there is the party is required by law to deposit its manifesto with the commission. So which, of course, is open for the public.
This one now is campaign on the road.
Exactly. So it's a party issue. People who want to win elections should have an idea of what they want to present to the people to win elections. Of course, more exposure, more training for politicians will help in that direction. And the other item that he mentioned is apathy.
Yes.
In terms of apathy, INEC role is to make election more credible. The more people believe the election is credible, the more they will come out for election. And INEC has been doing that in terms of the innovations that have come out.
We are going to look at that. It's part of what.
And then the politicians have to also play their part in terms of in removing this apathy and increasing participation of people.
Okay, let's look at one of the issues Abubakar also mentioned, although he summarized it, electoral advertorials. Should there be stricter limits on campaign spending, particularly for media advertising, to create a level playing field, especially for smaller parties that are just coming up?
Like I said, there are already limits for individual candidates running for office, which do we know whether what is the percentage of people in compliance and those not in compliance?
Whether they stick to the rules.
Whether they stick to the rules or not. But it's a reality that elections will cost money. And you cannot say, unless you are saying the government should finance the campaigns. That way everybody gets the same amount and everybody gets, but it's not realistic. It's not realistic at all. So election expenses, transparency to me is more important than what amount.
I think what we're trying to find out, if it is feasible, is that if perhaps a party, because they have more money, they dominate more of the airspace. Smaller parties might feel intimidated because they don't have that kind of money to spend. So should there be limits? I
think the law already addresses this.
Okay, what does it say?
That is, it says equal access to media. If media like NTA, for example, gives Party A 1 hour, it is required to give Party B, C, and D 1 hour. That's what
it doesn't talk about. It doesn't go to the extent of how much you can spend. Does it do that?
No, it doesn't go. It just allows for equal access in the media. Now, this aspect of media adverts, INEC alone cannot handle it. We have the MDC, which is the monitoring regulatory body. So there has to be synergy between MDC and INEC in terms of controlling media or regulating media political adverts. But I think the law that requires equal access is already a stepping stone. But I don't know how much compliance is there also, because don't forget, even almost all the states also have state radio stations.
Yes.
So even the states that have different parties, do they give the same equal access to all the parties also? So it's a general law that needs to be looked at.
Okay, the Justice Uwais report recommended shifting the burden of proof in election petitions to INEC. rather than the petitioner. Do you think this would enhance electoral justice or could create new challenges for the commission?
I think in terms of conduct of election, INEC provides sufficient documentation for anybody who wants to challenge the election. We have all the result sheets, all the polling unit results, everything is recorded and kept.
Sorry, we have a caller. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Yes, your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Mr. Chinomso Onya. I'm calling from Bida, the ancient city of the North.
You know you are going me. Let me not talk on Electoral Reform Hour. I will call you later. Chinomso, but go on with your point.
In Niger State, Nigeria. You see, your topic is so timely. I just tuned in, but I listened to my Bakamusa. I just finished making a very vital comments there, and I commend him for those recommendations he made. See, my own is this. I keep on wondering in this our country, and my regards to your guest in the studio. Sorry. My regards to your guest in the studio, and I like his own submission. But I keep on wondering in this our electoral process in this country, who controls the activity of politicians that, for example, they will be in party A. Let me not call any party's name. They will be in party A, registered member of a party A, and card carrier of a party A, and also working for party B. And when the party A that they are carrying their members, they registered it, and they are having a card carrier of that party A. If that party A takes them to court and say, okay, they want to suspend them or they want to expel them, they will rush to the court and go and collect a court verdict that will restrict that party A that they are member with. They will restrict the party A for not removing them or suspending them or for not disciplining them. So my question, I keep on wondering, is it INEC? Is INEC in charge of that? Does INEC have anything to do with that? Or does the court, is the court that does, I don't know how to put it, but I think you understand. So
I understand.
Who controls the activity of those politicians?
Okay.
Because it makes our political this thing in Nigeria look so childish. Because I looked at it as this Nigerian politics in Nigeria, the politics in Nigeria, like childishness. How can I be in party A? I'm working against my own party with party B, party B with them. So please, throw more light on it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Chinon. So let me allow you land so that you don't lose your thoughts with, the Justice Waste report recommending shifting the burden of proof the election petitions to INEC.
Okay,
before we come to Chinonso's issue.
INEC records and keeps sufficient documentation to support anybody who wants to challenge an election. So you are the person questioning the election. I think the body of proof should remain with you.
Yes.
And INEC already is mandated by law to provide you with all the documentation you need to challenge the election. Because INEC has already conducted the election. You don't need to go and be justifying the election again at every point of challenge. You have the documents to back up the outcome of the election that you have given. So I think the body of proof should remain with the petitioner. Not
with INEC. Okay.
So
let's answer Chinon. So I think the point he's trying to make is this political rascality, in inverted commas. You're in party A, you offend the party, you don't stick to the rules, and then when they want to punish you, you run to the courts, get a verdict, preventing the punitive measure that's supposed to be meted to you, and then because it's like sabotage. You're in A and you're working for B, and A discovers that you're sabotaging them and wants to mete out punitive measures, and then you just run to the court. It just makes the whole thing look shady. Now he says, where does the buck stop? I think that's his question. Is it INEC? Is it the judiciary?
No, the buck stops with the political party. Because you recall recently there's a Supreme Court ruling about leadership of a party where the Supreme Court says it's an internal affair of the party. So it is the party that should sit down. If they do their regular meetings, they should be able to take decisions about their members who are hiring. Nobody is stopping them from taking that decision. They don't need an outside authority to tell them what to do with their party. So the issue of going to court, the Supreme Court has already said some internal affairs of the party is not should be
justiciable.
Yeah. So the party, if you have serious leadership of a political party, they should be able to run the party according to the constitution of the party.
Should talk to themselves.
Exactly.
Okay, despite laws against it, vote buying. Okay, we have a caller. Hello, good morning. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Mohammed Kulu from Bida, Niger State.
All our callers from Bida, you're welcome. How are you? Go on.
In fact, I'm happy with your guest and the issue you are discussing. You are discussing a very important issue.
Okay.
What I have to suggest is the consensus method of electing aspirants during primary election in a particular political party is not good for us in Nigeria. It should be only direct and indirect primary election. It's far better, most especially direct primary election, which will involve each and every political members, so that each and every political member will have right to elect the right person to represent the party in a general election. That is my suggestion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, Alhaji Idris.
I get his point.
Yes.
He was making the point
like
about
consensus.
Consensus is one of the options provided in the Electoral Act. You can nominate your candidate by direct, indirect, or consensus. Now, the consensus has some requirements, which is that the aspirants, when there's a consensus, all other aspirants must, in writing, submit to the party that we have agreed that this is the consensus candidate. But that's not where the problem is. The problem is where the party allows for aspirants.
Okay, we have a caller. Let's take a call. Sorry to interrupt you. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, your name and where you're calling from?
It's Ovunna Dikla. I'm calling from Imchaliki, Aboi State.
Ovunna, you're welcome.
First of all, I have to commend the resource person. There is a question you wanted to ask, but I myself will complete it by asking the question, in terms of vote buying, who is going to be punished? The buyer or the person that buys the vote from his hand? What is the law stated over there? Is there any punishment for the person who sold his vote? And is there any punishment for the person who buys the vote? What is going, because there is need to specify it so that Nigerians will know the do's and don'ts over it. Thank you and God bless you.
God bless you, my brother. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. So, let me allow you land with consensus candidates before we go to vote buying. Yes.
I said the bigger challenge is that when a party has an aspirant, and an aspirant is not allowed to contest based on the, based on the need to push for consensus.
Yes.
I think that's where political parties need to be encouraged to allow, if I'm a member of your party and I'm interested in contesting a nomination, allow me to contest. Even if I lose, it's okay. Let me go and lose it. But to say we have agreed on consensus, so nobody should even contest, that's where the problem is, I think.
Okay, vote buying. You heard of
Yeah, vote buying, yes. Vote buying, the law is very clear. Both the buyer and the seller, they are culpable. They are culpable. There's no doubt about it. It's illegal for you to sell your vote. It is illegal.
What practical strategies can INEC and other stakeholders adopt to curb it?
Yeah, one of the ways INEC does is in the...
Because on election day, you have EFCC, you have ICPC, you have security, but it still hasn't stopped.
The first step is INEC collaborates with these agencies that you call. Okay. They are part of our security meetings in the national and the state offices of the INEC. And INEC's role at the PU is to create an atmosphere that is transparent. That is, when you have a crowded area, anything can happen. But INEC creates a space between the voter and the... there's a clear space between you and where you're voting.
But even at that, people have a way of stealing.
Exactly. So we have our sister agencies that are also patrolling in some PUs. At least they made some arrests.
But as I said, if you don't prosecute, people will still not be detained.
Yes, there has to be examples.
Yes.
There has to be
examples. Have we had that?
I think there were some prosecutions after 2023 election. I'm not sure of the data right now, but there were some prosecutions violence and for vote buying.
Okay. Now, there are ongoing debates about how the INEC chairman and commissioners are appointed. You know all the brouhaha, Abi, that goes with it. A woman is appointed. They say, oh, no, she grew up in the States. She's not supposed to be there. She knows everybody. She's indirectly a card member. And all those, reservations expressed. What's your take on the process?
I think
I think this should be our last call.
I think the major
sorry, go on. Okay. Last caller. Last 1 minute. 1 minute. Go on.
Hello.
Yes, your name and where you're calling from.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm calling from Vida. Comrade Usman from Vida.
Go on.
Hello.
Go on. I can hear you.
Okay, I'm asking. I have question. As is a consensus, is it good that they should go and a few people to select themselves inside room and do consensus, or consensus should come within the community that on the council?
Okay, thank you. Question noted. Although our guest has already addressed it. You've addressed it, but I don't know whether you want to add more.
No, consensus is a process where aspirants come together and agree to step down for each other. And it's coordinated by the political party itself.
Okay. So let's go on with the question I was asking.
Okay, yes.
INEC chairman and the way INEC chairman and commissioner are appointed, with all the reservations that go on with it, what do you think? Do you think that, is there no need for it?
I think the biggest criteria is non-partisanship in terms of INEC commissioners. You are not a partisan person, you have not registered for any political party, and you should be able to do your job without favoring any political party. That is the idea of having non-partisan persons in place. I think some of the examples we had in the past where there was problem of nomination is because of partisanship, open partisanship, which people noted. So once that is there, of course, that disqualifies you to go to INEC. But I think
so far the process is okay.
The process is okay, but non-partisanship is very important in the nomination process.
Okay, we should be coasting home, but let's take this last one. Even with the introduction of BVAS and IREV, what additional technological innovation should be implemented to enhance transparency in our electoral process?
Okay, I think we have come a long way. We started with the electronic register. We went all the way to BVAS and then IREF, and so far in terms of technology, we have gone the height. The only technology next step is the electronic voting, which is the next step in technology. But what is to me important, there's a trust issue. The trust issue is more. Yeah, there's a trust deficit, and enhancing trust in the process is more important than any technology. Technology will not give you trust. Technology is just to assure you that what is there is what is there. But trust in the system by people, between parties, between voters, between politics, all that trust is very important. If you look at some other systems in UK, for example, it's local governments that conduct election, and they are local government officials who go to conduct election and go back to their job.
And we don't close road and close shops.
Exactly.
People sit in the office,
it's a trust issue, and that's a societal issue. We need to address that issue.
God bless you indeed. Special thanks to our guest, Alhaji Aminu Idris, Resident Electoral Commissioner, Kaduna State, for joining us on our program today. That's it on Electoral Reform Hour. So our dear listener, I'd like to thank you for joining us. It was brought to you by Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PACA, with support from MacArthur Foundation. Our list of engineers on duty who made the transmission smooth are Leonard Silvanos and Adefemi Muko. ICT personnel is Emmanuel Ujeme, studio manager Uche Enebeli, producers Amde Hemba Unyi and Joy Ubi, supervisor Usena Akila, facilitating crew members Abu Grace and Jeremiah Mkume. We apologize that we couldn't take, I'm sure we exhausted almost all the questions. We couldn't take any today. Conversation continues next week, Thursday, same time, same station. We really appreciate the contributions of our funders, MacArthur Foundation. I'm Fubara Pepo, your uncle, saying have a good day and bye for now.